Okay, ladies, good evening. Just, we're coming in for the home run now, before Yom Kippur. Just tell you something very nice. On my way home, I got a ride with somebody, and she told me the story. She said, I think she said she read it in Mishpacha. She couldn't remember all the details, but when you hear the story, it doesn't really matter who the names were. She said there was a woman whose husband had been very sick. I don't know, some heart condition or whatever. And before Rosh Hashanah, a Rav, a Rebbe, this person who told me the story couldn't remember who it was, but somebody of that stature called up the woman, the wife, and said, "Tell me, have you been getting help with your, people have been helping you?" And she said, "Yeah, you can't imagine the chesed that we have received from people, the meals, the people coming in to be with me, to help with this, to help with that." And she gave, a whole list of all the things that friends and neighbors and people who didn't know her, people in the community, people in the neighborhood had done for her. So he said, this Rebbe, whoever was, said to this lady, I want to ask you something. This was before Rosh Hashanah. He said, on Rosh Hashanah, please tell Hashem how much chesed Jews have done for you. Right? It's a big source. Tell Hashem. So I was thinking it's a very, very beautiful, beautiful thing. And all of us, in one way or another, have been recipients of the chesed from other Yidden in many, many ways. And maybe on Yom Kippur we could take a minute just to tell Hashem, that, and to bring to the fore the the schuyas of Klal Yisrael, and with when we bring forward the schuyas of Klal Yisrael, Kadosh Baruch Hu bring forward our schuyas as well, which is what we all, our hearts all wish for. Okay, so I called this class the good, the bad, and the ... Which those of you who come from wherever you come from, you'll know that the last word is ugly or something, the good, the bad, and the ugly, which we are not. So one of the questions we could ask ourselves, and if we would go looking at the slichos, so we can ask ourselves, what kind of people are we? If we look at the slichos, we seem to be saying some rather hard, difficult, and not such nice things about ourselves. One of the things that we say to HaKadosh Baruch Hu is that we are dalim v'reikim. We're empty, we are lowly and empty. We are HaKadosh Baruch Hu. You have to help us for your own sake. Don't look to us. We're lowly people, dull, poor, lowly, and reikim, empty. Right? And from one point of view, if we would think about it, we could say that about ourselves. Yeah. But when we look at those words, we can understand them in a very different way. We only call people lowly because somewhere we believe they're capable of more. We don't say about a cat or a dog who's rolling around, I don't know, in the mud or the who knows what. Yeah, a cat that's running after a mouse and jumping on it, or a dog that's biting. We don't say, "Oh, what a lowly," how lowly. Why can't they behave themselves? Right? We might say, why don't they? If they have owners, why don't the owners control them? But we don't say it about the dog or the cat, because that's the nature of dogs and cats. The nature of animals is to do this. So we may not like it, and we may feel that this is a horrible thing to do, but we don't blame the cat for behaving that way. We don't blame the dog, because that's their nature. That's who they are. But in Slichos and in some parts of the davening Yom Kippur, we say things about ourselves which seem to be harsh. If we could think about it a little bit in the other direction, really these words are a praise of Klal Yisrael. That we're only considered to be lowly and empty because we're capable of being elevated and full of Kedusha. We're capable of being much, much more than that. In fact, even the words dal ureikim, the word dal is also, which means poor and lowly, also is the root of the word dli, which means a bucket. We're a bucket. Now, for a bucket, in the old days before people had indoor water coming in, in the house, right? You'd go out to the well, and the way that you'd get water out of the well is to lower the bucket. That the bucket is dull, is a dli, and it goes low. And because it goes low, it can go down into the cool, clean, sparkling water and bring it up. In fact, it's a miler that it can go down. It can go down not in a derogatory way, but it can go down in a useful way. And from that point of view, that we're willing to go down, that we're willing to act in a way of humility, right? That we're willing to give up on our gaiva. We're willing sometimes to be mavata, and people watching think, oh, look at her, she can't speak up for herself. But we know we could speak up for ourselves. We could certainly speak up for ourselves. That we make a decision not to, because to be marbe shalom, because the other person is a nebuch, and we whatever reason it is, we seem to be lowering ourselves. We could be lowering ourselves like a bucket into the water of Torah. Reikim, empty. Sometimes we're empty in the negative sense. We're empty of mitzvahs and midas tovas and many things. Everybody knows their own heart. But there's another kind of being rake. We empty ourselves of all the shtuyot, all the nonsense, all the stuff that we pick up from the media and from the internet that nobody has, right? And all the stuff from around us. We want to empty ourselves. In fact, a bucket, even if it's willing to go down low into the water, is useless if it's not empty, if it's full of bricks and dirt and schmutz. Either there's no room for the water, or the water will be contaminated by all the schmutz that's in the bucket. So from this point of view, we can understand dalim ureikim as something which is a potential either for us to be really low and empty-headed, empty-hearted people, or people who are willing to go down into the waters of Torah, and to fill ourselves up with the kedusha of the Torah, with all of the good of the Torah, all the good that we know is in the Torah, and all the good that we don't yet know is in the Torah. And this is true altogether when we speak on Yom Kippur, and we say the vidui. The purpose of the vidui is not to drag us down and make us feel what low lives we are. If you look in the vidui, you will see, and we all know this because we've said it for many years, that it doesn't say in the vidui, we are thieves. It says, we have stolen. It doesn't say, we are liars. It says, we have lied. Now, you could say, what's the difference? This is playing with words or something. But it's not playing with words at all. We've grown up, most of us, we come from Western countries, and therefore we were around the Christian religion. Not that we had anything to do with it, but it's in the air. Their ideas are in the air. And the idea of being a sinner is something that we've all heard directly, indirectly, I don't know how. What they mean by a sinner is that a person is by nature a sinful person. When the Torah says that we're sinners, it doesn't mean that at all. It means we do things we do sins, we commit sins. And the reason why we're held responsible for it is because we could do otherwise, because we're capable of much more. Now, you might think, this is a nice thing to say, maybe this is a more 21st or 20, whatever century thing to say. Let's all pat each other on the back and feel good, but it's not true at all, right? The Gemara tells us when we finish davening Shmona Esrei, regular Shmona Esrei, we have a little tefillah that we say at the end. Elokai, right? The Elokai, right? It's right at the end of the Shmona Esrei. So that tefillah is one of the many suggestions or options that the Gemara gives of what to say after you finish Shemona Esrei. Now, this is the standard one that everybody says, but there are others. And I, somehow or another, in my siddur, they print them. So, I once was curious what the others could have been. And one of them, which is straight from the Gemara, is this. Rabbeinu Shalom, Galui v'yodua lefonecha, it is revealed and known before you, Sherotzonecha la'asos rotzonecha. Sherotzonenu la'asos rotzonecha. That our will is to do your will. That's our will. That's what we really want. So and then the tefillah continues on. Umama akev. So what's stopping us? Right? If our real will is to do the will of Hashem, so what stops us? And the answer is given two answers. Sa'or shebe'isa, the leaven in the dough, which is another way of saying the Yetzer Hara. We have an inner part of us, which of self-sabotage, that plays on our weaknesses. The word ra in Hebrew, it doesn't. It's called, we translate it as evil, but it's from the word ru'uya, which means weak. We have weaknesses, and sometimes we give into those weaknesses. That's the Yetzer Hara. And the other is Shibud Malchius, the oppression of the nations, which doesn't mean they're whipping us and putting us into Russian camps or something like that. Sometimes it did mean that. But it means that we are oppressed with the ideas, non-Jewish ideas. Non-Jewish ideas are filtered into our consciousness, and they make it seem as if that those ideas are normal, and that the ideas of the Torah are crazy or not realistic or fanatic or old-fashioned, and we have a million words for what it is, or irrelevant. Somehow it's irrelevant. And what some influencer on YouTube has to say seems much more to the point, and especially if that person has a keeper on his head, right? So we have a lot of that kind of thing. Shibud Malchius, right? Shibud Malchius. And we have it in many ways, the way the styles of the way we do things, the expressions that we use. I'm not talking about the bad language, not that, just the expressions that we use, all kinds of things, and certain things that we say which are not part of the Torah at all. The weekend, here in Israel, we don't say it so much, the weekend, right? Where we come from, we said the weekend. What does it mean? Yeah, the weekend meant Shabbos and Sunday. Sunday is not the weekend. Sunday is Yom Rishon. It's the first day. Now we might want to say that. So what does it matter? Maybe there it matters. It doesn't matter. But it means that we have taken in non-Jewish ideas somehow or another. Right? When people come to Israel, one of the classics that people will say when they first come here, so when they live here a little bit, they say, "Oh, there's no Sunday. There's no Sunday here." Right? Who told you that Sunday is a special day? That there has to be. Who told us? It's not that we believe that religion where Sunday is a special day. Of course we don't believe it. But we've taken in that idea and many, many, many other ideas. Nonetheless, says the Gemara, it's because of these two factors. We have our inner weaknesses which pull us in the wrong direction. And we have external influences which influence everybody. And no matter what we do, we're influenced. But some of us let those ideas in more and more and more and more, but with all the other, our access to all the media and all the other things that we do. But nonetheless, this way or that way, these two factors prevent us from doing what we really want to do. Says the Gemara, Ratzonenu la'asos ratzonecha. Our true ratzon is to do the will of Hashem. So when we say in the vidui, yeah, Gazalu, we stole, we mean we are honest people. The only reason for berating ourselves for stealing is because we are honest. If you grew up in the mafia and everybody is killing and murdering and maiming, and all you do is steal, you know what? You're doing very well, right? Because you could be killing people, maiming people, who knows what else, right? But if you're a Jew and we're honest people, we're good people. So the Vidui is saying we have not lived up to who we really are, to our real Ratzon, which is to do the Ratzon Hashem. And this idea is not, it's not supposed to get us off the hook. It's not like, well, I couldn't help myself. We could help ourselves. I'm not saying it's always going to be easy. After all, we have inner weaknesses, which either we picked up from the families we came from, or they're part of what we came into the world to fix, or it doesn't matter how it got there. We have these weaknesses, and we do have the influence. We're in Golos. We have the influences of Golos. Even here not in Eretz Yisrael, we're in Golos. It might be in Hebrew. The buses might say Chag Sameach on the front during, when it's before Yontif, but we're still in Golos. We have many, but we're capable of much more. The more that we're holding on to the Torah, the more that we're that dli, that goes down, leaves behind our gaiva and is willing to go down, down, down into the waters of the Torah and to empty ourselves of all the shtuyot, then the more we will be able to emerge from the well full of Kedusha, full of Torah, full of Yiras Shamayim, and all the Midas Tovas that all of us yearn for, really. And that way, what will come out, not somebody else, not a new me, but the real me, the old me, the me before I was influenced by all the other things. Right? So that's the first idea of Yom Kippur. Now, the Vilna Gaon has a very interesting thing that he says. The Vilna Gaon says that one of the reasons that we don't keep mitzvahs is because we don't value them, right? At the end of, in the davening, at the end of Ashamnu, Bagadnu, we say, right, the short vidui, we say, Sanu mi mitzvah secha, we've turned away from your mitzvahs, velo shava lanu, which literally means it wasn't worth it. When we think about it now, was it really worth it? I said that juicy piece of Lashon Hara, I felt good for 10 seconds and everybody, was it worth it? It wasn't worth it, right? It wasn't. When we turn away from the mitzvahs, it's really not worth it. But the Vilna Gaon says the words velo shava lanu are not really a separate thing. They are an explanation of why we turn away from the mitzvahs. We turn away from the mitzvahs because they are not shaveh. They're not worth it to us. We don't recognize how great it is to do a mitzvah. We don't realize how holy a mitzvah is. We don't realize how elevated a mitzvah is. If we realize how elevated a mitzvah is and how we have been given the tremendous privilege of doing mitzvahs, we would never turn away from them. It's just that somehow or another we see them as, I don't know what, rituals, cultural something. They're very nice, they're very this, they're very that, but we haven't chapped, and maybe it's difficult for us to chap the true value of a mitzvah. The Gemara says that there's no reward for mitzvahs in this world. Why isn't there a reward? Was Hashem, trying to see if we'll just do them and let's see what will happen. So the Gemara says, no, there's no reward for mitzvahs in this world because there's no currency to reward a mitzvah. There's nothing in this world that could give us a real reward for doing mitzvahs. There's nothing precious enough. There's nothing enough. The only thing that we could ask for when we do a mitzvah is the opportunity to do more mitzvahs, right? That's why we say to people, when somebody does something for us, we say, Tiskila mitzvahs, may you merit to do mitzvahs. Is this a way of saying thank you to somebody? Somebody help me out. So I want to say, may you merit to help me out again? Yeah, because if the more mitzvahs you have, then in the next world, your reward will be great, but it can't be great in this world. So you'll ask me, and this is the question of the Rambam, when we say the second paragraph of the Shema, doesn't it say, Im Shemoah Tishmu, if you listen to my voice, Hashem says, I'll give you rain. Rain meant panosa, food, right? Not like us, we go and buy the carrots. right? In plastic bags. People relied on what they could grow. I'll give you rain, I'll give you this, I'll give you that, and if you don't listen to my mitzvahs, you won't have rain, you won't have this. Isn't that reward and punishment? So the Rambam says it's not reward and punishment. Hashem is simply saying this: if you do mitzvahs, then Hashem will give us the resources to continue doing more mitzvahs. I can't do mitzvahs if I don't have any food to eat. I can't continue to serve Hashem if I don't have any parnasa. I can't continue to do this and this and this unless I have resources. Mitzvahs, it's not just we have to keep, physically to keep alive, but mitzvahs are expensive, right? Everybody knows mitzvahs are expensive, right? Right? Buying Arbor Minim are expensive. Even if you buy the cheapest version, they're expensive. Matzah is expensive. All the mitzvahs are expensive. So HaKadosh Baruch Hu says, if you show me that you want to do mitzvahs, I will reward you by giving you the means to continue doing mitzvahs. And if you show me that you're not interested in doing mitzvahs, so I won't give you the resources. As you're not doing any mitzvahs, you can fill up your time running around trying to earn a living. It's not a reward. The reward is in the next world because mitzvahs are so precious. And if they're always precious, we could say, maybe, and in our generation, they're more precious than ever because there are so few people doing mitzvahs. There's so few diamonds. That's why they're so precious. There's so few people doing mitzvahs. The mitzvahs become even more and more precious. But the Vilna Gaon says, after davening, there's always a kapitel of Tehillim to say, and for all the different Yom Tovim, the different holidays, there's a perek of Tehillim to say. So the Vilna Gaon has his own version of which one to say of which time. It doesn't necessarily correspond to what you're going to find in your machzor. But the Vilna Gaon says that on Yom Kippur, the kapitel, the perek of Tehillim that we say is 32, Lamed Beis. There it says, what does it say in Lamed Beis that's so important? It says, Ashrei Nisui Pesha, Kisui Chata'ah. Happy is the person whose Pesha means deliberate violations of the Torah, something which is done knowingly and deliberately. Not you did it, but you didn't know it was wrong. That's called shoigeg. Pesha is you know it's wrong and you do it deliberately. Happy is the person whose pesha, whose rebellion really, is elevated. What does that mean? That Hashem somehow takes that pesha and he elevates it into something which is at least could be potentially good. Obviously, if you've got it in you to defy Hashem, then you have it in you if you just get on the right path to serve Hashem with a lot of koach, right? If you've really got that koach inside of you, it could be used for good things. But the Vilna Gaon says, here's how you should try, based on the Medrash, here's how you should translate it. Happy is the person who is higher, nesui, higher than his rebellion, rather than his sin or his rebellion being higher than him. Happy is the person who knows that we are above doing wrong. Or to say it the other way, why would we lower ourselves to do something which is below us? Right? In Yiddish, it says, "Pashnish." That's nicht. It's like lo matim lecha. It doesn't fit you. It's not fitting for us to lower ourselves to do some of the averas of the Torah. Now there are obvious averas where I suppose no normal person would lower themselves. But anything the Torah says not to do means that when we do it, we're lowering ourselves in the negative sense. Who is the person who's fortunate? The person is fortunate who looks at averas and says, I will not lower myself to do that. not out of arrogance, but out of being realistic. My true Ratzon is to do the Ratzon Hashem. I'm B'Tselem Elokim. I have a neshama, which is a chelek Elokah Mimam. If you look in, that phrase, chelek Elokah Mimam appears everywhere. You can find it in Mesilas Yesharim, you find it in the Tanya, you find it in the parish of the Vilna Gaon. If you look in the parish of the Vilna Gaon on Nishmas, you'll see that he says that a person has a neshama, which is a chelek Elokah Mimam. Right? It runs through the whole gamut of Jewish thinking and whatever. Does that mean that we have a spark of HaKadosh Baruch Hu in us? How would we lower ourselves to do something like that? So from one point of view, we could feel bad, we could feel sad, and that's what charata is. Charata is not, I'm sorry, Hashem, that I didn't speak to people nicely. Now I don't have any friends. I mean, you might, it's true, you could feel sorry for that, but that's not the real reason to be sorry. The real reason, that's only the outcome of the affair. The real reason is how could I, who has inside me this holy, this heilige neshama, how could I have lowered myself like that? How can I have become that kind of a person? So what I'm really saying, and what we are really saying when we say the vidui, is not we are wicked, evil, terrible people, right? The Mishnah in Pirkei Avos, it says, Al tiyeh rosha bifnei atzmach. Do not be evil in your own eyes, in your own estimation. Do not see yourself as evil. And over there, the Bartanura, who's one of the classic commentaries on the Mishnah, says there are two reasons for not seeing yourself as an evil person. One is, if you see yourself as evil, it's a self-fulfilling prophecy. Somebody who's evil by nature can only do evil, or in our terminology, an apple tree can only give apples. Apple trees do not give oranges. Right? If we're evil, all we can do is evil. Right? That's the one reason. The second reason he gives is because it's simply not true. We are not evil people. We're good people. We are people. We are the children of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Since we're the children of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, it's not a casual relationship. We're the very children of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. We have a spark of him, just like children have a spark, not just the genetic material of their parents and all kinds of other things in them. So we, so to speak, have the genetic material, kiviyachol, is that way of speaking, of HaKadosh Baruch Hu inside of us. We have a spark of him. Right? So how could we ever come to do this? And conversely, we are so elevated, we are so high, we are so beyond, that if only we would look and pay attention to who we are, we would never dream of lowering ourselves to do averas. So Yom Kippur is not supposed to be a litany of beating ourselves up. There's charata, there's regret. For sure there's regret. There's regret that I didn't live up to who I am. But it's not the regret of because I'm a wicked person. It's the regret because I'm a good person. And unfortunately, I didn't live up to it. But here's another year. Kadosh Baruch Hu's given me another year. And now, from now on, I'm going to try. The other is that, if we would say, if Hashem says, here's Rosh Hashanah, here's Yom Kippur. You have 10 days in all, right? The Aseret Yemei Tshuva include Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur. From Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur to put everything right in your life. I mean, it's an impossibility, right? What do we have to show HaKadosh Baruch Hu? All we have to show HaKadosh Baruch Hu is that we're willing to go on the path that is matim for us. We're willing to go on the path that fits who we really are. We're willing to put aside all of our weaknesses and all of the influences of the outside world as far as possible. And we're willing to live in a way that is more true to who we are. And if we will show Kodesh Baruch Hu that, then he who sees the end from the beginning, he doesn't have to wait till we fix everything. He knows. He knows when we make that decision not to do that Avera again. So in his eyes, it's as if it's a done deal. Once, many years ago, somebody asked Rebbetzin Samet, who was one of the pioneers in teaching Shmiras Haloshim, if you stand in shul on Yom Kippur and you say vidui on all the averas that you can do with our mouths, and there are a lot of them in the vidui, right? So how can I say to Hashem, I'm not going to do it again? I mean, not just I'm likely to do it again, but I don't even know the halachas. Do I know all the halachas of Shmiras Haloshim? Right? I don't. Even if I would go home the minute after Yom Kippur and sit down and learn them, can I learn all the halachas in one shot? Of course not. Not only I can't learn all the halachas, but what about all the friends that I hang out with who always say Lashon Hara? How am I going to get away? How am I going to do that? I'm going to have to change some of my friends. And even if I plan not to speak Lashon Hara, we have certain speech patterns that we've fallen into, right? Certain ways of relating to other people. So she said, if you say to HaKadosh Baruch Hu on Yom Kippur, I'm not going to mean it. I plan for a year I will not speak Lashon Hara. If you have in your mind some plan, then HaKadosh Baruch Hu takes you seriously. So what would a plan be? I mean, she gave, I think, if I'm not mistaken, she gave us an example. You learn, 2 halachas of Shmiras Haloshim a day, or, do one of these, these machsum lefi, where you take on a certain number of hours, where you're very careful. Some plan. Will we fall? Will we fail? Yes, but that doesn't mean that we were not sincere. And it doesn't mean that HaKadosh Baruch Hu will say, you said you wouldn't do it, and here you are doing it. Because HaKadosh Baruch Hu understands it's going to take time. But if we have the plan, then HaKadosh Baruch Hu sees the end from the beginning. It's what we would call a learning curve. When somebody learns something, we expect them to make mistakes along the way, because that's the way you learn. We expect people to fail before they succeed. Why? Because until you start doing something and you realize you're going wrong here and you're going wrong there, you can't get it right. That's the nature of being a human being. So when we come and we say the vidui, and we say to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, I've not lived up to who I am. Our true will is to do your will, Hashem. What's my charotza? What's my regret? My regret is not just I did this Avera. My regret is this Avera is not who I really am, and I'm not living up to that. And now I take upon myself for the future to be who I really am. Will it happen overnight? It certainly is not going to happen between now and Yom Kippur. It won't happen from Yom Kippur. It won't happen. But if I have a plan, some idea in my mind, then HaKadosh Baruch Hu is not limited by time. HaKadosh Baruch Hu is Yud-Kei Vav-Kei, the Shem Hashem, Haya V'Yiyeh, was, is, and will be. He transcends time. He's not stuck in the moment. He can see what will be in the future, as long as I make a sincere commitment. There's also an idea which I heard tonight. Rabbi Refson gave a little talk about teshuvah, and he said something which I thought was I've heard before, and you've probably heard it before as well. But he said something which I hadn't heard before. Rabbi Refson learned in the yeshiva of Rav Elia Lopian Zatzal. Rav Elia Lopian Zatzal was one of the greatest of the Bali Musa. And he said that Rav Elia used to say in the yeshiva that he Rav Elia, has a Masorah going back, one generation back and back and back and back and back to wherever it goes back to. And Rabbi Refson said he gave all the explanations. It's not going to go into it now, but of course, if Rav Elia Lopian says it, then it's true, that if somebody makes a Kabbalah, takes upon themselves something, even the smallest thing, to do something good, or to refrain from something negative, then that person will be written in the Sefer HaChaim. Not they might be, but they will be. It has to. It shouldn't be something big. He kept saying this. It shouldn't be something big. Rav Eli, he said in the yeshiva, Rav Eli says things like benching from a bencher, or knowing the simple meaning of the first paragraph of Aleinu. We could find our own things that we could think, whatever it is. Something small, not the, I'm going to say the whole Shemona Esrei with Kavanah. It's a ludicrous thing to say, unless you already say almost all of it with Kavanah, maybe not. But otherwise, something small. He says, if a person takes that on sincerely, he will be written in the Sefer Chaim. Why? Because HaKadosh Baruch Hu takes that Kabbalah, which is made sincerely and which we are able to keep, meaning we're honest about it. We're real about it. If I say I'm going to say the whole Shemona Esrei with Kavanah, it's like a joke. It's like I'm not taking this seriously. But if I say I'm going to say the first 2 words of the Shemona Esrei with Kavanah, I'm going to learn the simple translation of something. If I can't learn the translation, I'm going to let my eyes glance over in the art scroll to see what it is I'm saying, or whatever it is. Everybody knows them for themselves what they could do. If it's something that can be done realistically, then HaKadosh Baruch Hu takes this as an indication of the direction we plan to go in. If I take on one little thing, I'm one step closer to where I want to go, which really means that one step closer to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Maybe next week, next month, maybe it will be next year before I'll take the next step. But as long as I'm pointed in the right direction, I'll end up in the right place. And then he added something. He said, what happens if you're asking somebody directions? Today, we don't even know about this because of Waze and everything. You ask somebody directions, and you say, I'm on such and such a road. And the guy says, okay, fine. Just keep going on that road. And if you just keep going, you'll end up where you want to be. So you're on the road. Fantastic. You go, not only cruise along, you go fast, right? Because you're going where you want to get to. When you get to the end of the road, you're not where you want to get to. You're exactly in the opposite place. Why? Because one thing that you failed in is to ask, which way should I be going on that road? Should I be going to the right, to the left, to the east, to the west, or whatever it is? So he said, when that happens, and sometimes it does happen to us, we've taken a path that we've taken on things which we thought would be good for us, and they turn out to be the opposite. All is not lost. When you're at the wrong end of that long road, there's only one way that you can go now, and that is in the right direction. Or to say another way, when somebody hits rock bottom, the only place they can go is up. So nothing is ever going to be lost. Whatever we've done in the previous year, we decided we're going to, do something, and it turned out to be what we think as a waste of time, counterproductive. It just caused stress. Yeah, we meant it for good, but it just was terrible. And we feel like, what a waste of time, what a waste of effort. On the contrary, now I know exactly what not to do. And that in itself is an important thing. All I need to do now is to turn around and go in the other direction. So anything, whether it's a positive, tiny step forward or a negative step, which I now realize I shouldn't have made, all of it can be used this Yom Kippur for all of us to take us where we want to go. And as he said, in the name of Rav Elia Lopian Zatzal, if we do this sincerely, we really mean it, then we will be written in the Sefer Chaim, in the Sifron Shel Tzadikim, and which of course is the whole avoda of Yom Kippur. So if this is true, what do I need the whole avoda of Yom Kippur for? Why don't I just stay at home now and say it? Okay, first of all, we know there's a special koyach of Yom Kippur. The day of Yom Kippur has a special koyach to help us to be who we really are. Okay, so I'll wake up on Yom Kippur in the morning of Yom Kippur. I don't even have to wait for the morning. I could do it at night. And I'll say, okay, Hashem, this year I'm taking on to bench from a bencher, let's say, something like that, right? And that's it. Now I'm in the Sefer Chaim. What do I need the rest of Yom Kippur for? Because we know that commitments are not made in one like that in 1 second. The whole avoda of Yom Kippur, the whole day of Yom Kippur, whether you're in shul or you're not in shul, right? The whole avoda of Yom Kippur solidifies what we really want to be, who we really want to be. The fast, the word tzom is from the word litzamtzem. Yeah, we are full of nonsense often. We are full of ourselves. We need to reduce not our true selves, but our full self, the ego, which takes us away from Hashem. If we can reduce that, we will find who we really are underneath. Another word for fast is ta'anit, tinus, right? It's from the word, the two roots for it. One is the word oni, poverty, poor, and the other is la'anot, to get an answer. If we can simply see our own poverty, how much we're lacking, and why are we lacking? Because we're full of ego, rather than being full of the allowing the kedusha of HaKadosh Baruch Hu to flow, to be our life source. If we do that, then all of our resolutions to do good can be solidified and will come out at the end of Ne'ilah, being not just knowing we're good people, but sensing it, not just feeling it. I hope we'll feel it as well, because our feelings can be very powerful in helping us in our avoda. But there's something deeper than feeling. There's some deep sense of knowing who we are. Ashrei ha'am. And one of them is in the words of Ashrei. Ashrei ha'am shekocha lo. Happy is the nation who is his. What's kacha? If you live in Israel, you just know Hebrew. You ask a child, why are you doing it? Kacha. Kacha means because I want to, because I feel like it. No reason, I just want to. Right? That's just how it is, kacha. So one way of understanding Ashrei ha'am shekocha lo is this. HaKadosh Baruch Hu wants us to do something, and you know why we're doing it? Kacha, because he said, I don't understand all of the reasons. I don't understand all of the depths. I don't understand all the consequences and the non-consequences. So we should try to understand, but we're limited. And some things we won't understand. We're not Talmidei Chachamim. And even Talmidei Chachamim don't know all of the reasons for everything. And in the end, we serve HaKadosh Baruch Hu kacha. We serve him because we're his children. We're his. And the neshama which is inside of us keeps pulling us back to him. After all, the fact that we're concerned about Yom Kippur, we have any concern whatsoever, is proof positive that we want to do the right thing. If not, we would be out now partying in Tel Aviv. What are we doing here? Just the fact that we recognize that it's Yom Kippur, that in itself means that there's something about us that wants to do the right thing, because that touches the very essence of who we are. In Eretz Yisrael, even people very, very, very far removed from Yiddishkeit, the streets are empty on Yom Kippur. I remember a few years ago in the minyan I davened in, I think it was just before Ne'ilah, the Rav said, in the break, he said, I went outside and I looked over, from, I live in Hanover, you could look over, you can see the highway. He said, I called out someone else and I said, look, what do you see? And he said, I see, look at the road, what do you see? And he said, nothing. That's the greatness of Klal Yisrael. That on Yom Kippur, you look on the roads and you see nothing. People who are very far removed, or somehow or another, Yom Kippur speaks. And if it speaks to them, it surely speaks to us. It speaks to us in an even deeper way, because we, Baruch Hashem, been zeicha to learn Torah and to have some contact with that kedusha. What's the purpose of the vidui? Why do things have to be said? Why isn't it good enough just to think about it, right? So, we know that when we speak, we activate a different part of who we are. a different part of the brain is activated when we speak. That's true. But there's more than that, right? The Nefesh HaChaim is Rav Chaim Volozhiner, who was a Talmud of the Vilna Gaon. So he says this: when we are made up of the letters of the Aleph base. HaKadosh Baruch Hu created the whole world with the letters of the Aleph base. The letters of the Aleph base are called osios, signs. They're not. They carry. Don't just represent some spiritual energy. They carry that energy. Now we're sort of familiar with this idea from chemistry. Let's say water is H2O. H is hydrogen. 2 means there are 2 molecules of hydrogen, and O is oxygen, 1 molecule of oxygen. If you take 2 molecules of hydrogen and you join it, however they're joined, with 1 molecule of oxygen, hey presto, you have water, right? But the letter H is only a convenience. It happens to be the first word of hydrogen, so it's easy to remember. But if we decided that hydrogen will be represented by the letter K, let's say, why not? It's only a representation. There's nothing in the letter H itself which has any force. But this is not true about the letters of the Aleph base. The letters of the Aleph base represent the spiritual energies with which HaKadosh Baruch Hu created the world. There are 22 letters of the Aleph base. I'm leaving out the final letters. So 22 letters. If you add up the atomic numbers of the 4 elements of the world, hydrogen, oxygen, nitrogen, and carbon, right? They're the four elements that make up everything. If you add up their atomic numbers, it adds up to 22, right? There are 22 elements with which HaKadosh Baruch Hu created the world. And they're represented by the letters of the Aleph base. And the letters themselves are tzinorim. They are pipelines which carry that energy, which is why when we daven, it's important to say the words, and it's important to try to pronounce the words correctly, because it's not because HaKadosh Baruch Hu doesn't understand us. I mean, it can't be that. If you have a child who's just learning to speak and they're thirsty, and they come over to you and say, I want a drink, what are you going to say to them? Until you can pronounce it properly, until you can say the word drink, I'm not giving it to you. Of course you would never do that. The child would be gone before they can learn to pronounce it. It's not because HaKadosh Baruch Hu doesn't understand us. When we say the words, we create the pipeline through which HaKadosh Baruch Hu can bring to us what we are asking for. So Rav Chaim Volozhiner says, when we do Averos, the letters of the Aleph base, which make up us, are moved out of their place. They become out of sync with us. And they leave a vacuum. And that vacuum is filled by the Ruach of Tumah, the Ruach of impurity. When we say the Vidui and we say the words, we are putting back the letters into their place. We're putting the letters back into their place, not just in the world, but inside of us, and thereby pushing out, expelling any tumor that was left from the Averas that we've done. Now, I just told you this. I have to be honest with you, I don't really know what I'm talking about. I just read it, right? It says in the, so I know it must be true, but we can get the idea a little bit, right? We're made up of certain kinds of, let's say, spiritual molecules or something like this. And when we do something wrong, these molecules, as it were, are pushed away. And there's a space, and tumor fills it. When we say the vidui, we say the words sincerely, not just parroting it. We say it sincerely. And when we say it sincerely, we also mean that we recognize who we really are, that we're above all of these Averas, as the Vilna Gaon says. See yourself as above your Averas. Don't see your Averas as you, because they're not you. We don't say we are thieves. We say we have stolen. We're not thieves. We're honest people who sometimes steal. We're not liars. We're honest people who sometimes tell lies. Right? Don't See yourself as that. When I say those words, I push out the tumah and I bring back the Kedusha that was there before. And when we bring back the Kedusha that was there before, it's not just that now we're psychologically ready to keep mitzvahs. It's not just we're emotionally connected, that our very neshama is strengthened with Kedusha in order to do the Ratzon Hashem. And this is what we see. We see it if you're in Shul for Ne'ilah, you see the longing, the unbelievable longing of Klal Yisrael to be with Hashem. When that gate is closing for Ne'ilah, don't think it means, Hashem, you're up there, you're closing the gates, and I don't want you to close the gates, I'm down here. It means wait until I come inside the gate with you. It's the moment of Yichud. It's the moment when the Chosen and Kala, after the chuppah, go into the Chedra Yichud and the door is closed and they're in there together. That's what we're waiting for. When we say that, please keep that gate open. Don't close the gate, even though it's time to close the gate. Wait for what? Wait until I come inside HaKadosh Baruch Hu, because that's what I really want. I want to be inside there with you, and I want you to be inside there with me, because that's who we really are. But, Klal Yisrael are wonderful people. Sometimes, we say, and all of us can give a whole list of things that we think are wrong with Klal Yisrael. And some things we'll have in common, and other things I never thought of. But now you told me you're right, and now I told you, yeah, I'm right. We can give lists and lists, but we're a nation of people who are trying to do good. You see the chesed, the unbelievable chesed of Klal Yisrael. Years ago, my son was in Yeshiva Katana. Those days they had I think CDs or whatever. He came home one day with a CD, and it was it was all these songs, whatever. And there was one song in English, so he wanted me to listen to it. Great. And it was a song speaking about Avram Avinu, and the words went something like, I don't remember exactly, Avram Avinu, is this the nation that you dreamt of? Is this the nation that you dreamt of? And I remember saying to him, go into the living room and find those days people who still use these directories, the Haredi directory or the directory of the neighborhood. Go inside and turn to the pages where it says Gemachim, right? Turn and see, you'll see that there are Gemachim for absolutely everything. And the Gemachim are just the very tip of the iceberg of what the Jewish people do. This is the nation that Avram Avinu dreamt of. You think of all the, sometimes we're hearing a lot of bad press about the Haredi world. All the Chesed organizations were started by Haredim. All the organizations, there's no one in Israel who hasn't benefited from Yad Sarah, from all the medical things, whatever. They don't just service the frum people, they service everybody. This is the nation that Avram Avinu dreamt of, and this is who we really are. HaKadosh Baruch Hu created the world, Elam Chesed Yiboneh, he built the world with Chesed. And he breathed that into us. When he breathed into Adam HaRishon, he breathed it into Klal Yisrael. We are really a reflection of HaKadosh Baruch Hu in the world. When we do something wrong, we have to own up. What do we own up to? We own up that we didn't live up to who we really are. And we regret it. I don't just regret the action that I did. I do regret the action. I regret the consequences, but I regret even more that I lowered myself to be less than who I am. And I take upon myself in the future not to do it again, which means I take upon myself in the future to be more of who I really am, to be the Tzelem Elokim that I am, to be the Chelik Elokam Imal that I am. That's really what Yom Kippur is about. Yom Kippur is a Yom HaRachamim. It's a very elevated day. The word Rachamim, the root of the word Rachamim is Rechem, womb. It's a day of birth. Rachamim, din means you get what's coming to you. You did this, you get that. Rachamim means you get another chance, right? There's a new life coming. reverse the word rechem, you have the word machar, tomorrow. Yom Kippur is the day when HaKadosh Baruch Hu is saying, if you simply recognize who you are and strongly make a decision to go in that direction, I will give you another tomorrow, and another tomorrow, and another tomorrow. Maybe you're full, maybe you're this, but as long as you make this decision and you're on the right road, your feet are pointing you to the place you want to go, even if you go very slowly, even if sometimes you trip, even if sometimes you get tired and you can't be bothered, and all the other things that are inevitably going to happen to us. As long as you keep on that road and you take on a Kabbalah, which signifies your true intentions, then as Rav Eli Lopian Zatzal said, and he has a Masorah, right? Then I will write you, Hashem says, in the Sefer Chaim, in the Sifron Shel Tzadikim. May we, all of us, B'zeicha, the whole of Klal Yisrael, become Makom Shehem, in every place that there, become Matzav Shehem, in every situation. B'zeicha to that moment on Yom Kippur, the moment of recognizing how great it is, right? How great it is to be a Jew, how privileged we are to have the Torah, that every mitzvah is a precious diamond. We won't see the reward here, not because Hashem is holding out, but because it's beyond anything that he could give us in this world. But one day we will get it. And before we get it, what we'll get here is his goodness and his holiness and the connection to him and what we long for. With all of our hearts, there should be Shalom al Yisrael. We should see here Beseres Tovos for the whole of Klal Yisrael. We should see an end to this war. We should see all the Shvurim, all the Chatufim come home. There should be a refuah shlema for all the people that have been injured, a protection for all the people who are fighting. And we should see what we really, really want to see, the Geula Shlema. The end of Yom Kippur, we blow the shofar. That shofar is what? That shofar is the shofar that would have been blown if we knew which year was the Yovel. When the Yovel was announced with the blowing of the shofar, right? So after 7 years, Shemitah, 7 years. So a slave, a Jewish slave, if he wanted to, could say, I want to remain a slave. The next 7 years, he could still remain a slave. But when the Yovel comes, the 50th year, everyone goes free. And that's what happens at the end of Yom Kippur. When they blow that shofar, we all will go free. If you stay for Ma'ariv, you wonder what they're saying in Ma'ariv, right? Ma'ariv is a regular Shmona Esrei. Slach lanu avinu ki chatanu machal lanu malkeinu ki b'shalom. Forgive us, Hashem, we've sinned. What sins could you have done between Ne'ilah and Ma'ariv, which follows? Maybe you could have said the Chazan wasn't as good as he was last year. I don't know what you could say. But you know why we say that? Because we second guess ourselves. We come out of Ne'ilah and then we start saying, did Hashem forgive me? Didn't he forgive me? Maybe he did. For that, we should say vidui. For that, we have to say sorry in Ma'ariv. Don't second guess yourself. If you were there, whether you're in shul or not in shul, not everyone can be in shul for all kinds of reasons. But if you were there and you want to follow HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and you take on a small, tiniest Kabbalah, then with the kindness, the rachamim, the rachmanas of HaKadosh Baruch Hu will all be written in the Sefer HaChaim. I wish you all a gemar, chasima tova, good gebenstjo.